The air inside the Savannah probate court was thick and heavy, the kind of silence that presses against your skin and makes every breath feel loud. I sat there without moving, my hands folded neatly in my lap, while my brother Benedict stood before the judge and calmly explained why I needed to be locked away. He spoke with the same smooth, careful tone he used in his plastic surgery practice, choosing words like unstable and danger to herself as if he were discussing a routine procedure. Every sentence was clean, polished, and rehearsed. Behind him, my parents dabbed their eyes with silk handkerchiefs, playing their parts perfectly, the image of broken hearts and noble suffering. I did not scream. I did not protest. I did not defend myself. I simply rested my fingers against a small, cold recorder hidden inside my pocket and thought about the text Benedict had sent me just hours earlier. "We're doing this because we love you." That was the exact moment everything became clear. Love was not their reason. Love was their cover. It was their excuse. Before I explain how my brother destroyed himself in the next 10 minutes, I want you to pause and understand this moment, because truth matters. And I want to know who stands with it. To understand why I sat silently in that courtroom while they painted me as a mad woman. You have to go back 3 months, to the day my grandfather's will was read. That was the day the polished image of the Vance family finally cracked, revealing what had always been festering underneath. We were gathered in the main estate's library, a room heavy with the smell of old leather, dust, and long-buried secrets. My grandfather had spent his life collecting beauty, almost as if he were trying to balance out the ugliness of his own blood. His final decision shocked everyone except me. He left the entire Savannah estate, valued at $15 million, along with his private art collection, to me alone. To Octavia, the quiet one, the strange one, the girl who lived in the carriage house and always smelled faintly of turpentine. Benedict received nothing. Neither did my parents. The reaction was not explosive. It was worse. It was slow, tight, and suffocating, like pressure building in a sealed room. Benedict had always been the golden child. In my parents' eyes, he was the center of everything, the sun around which we all revolved. He was brilliant, charming, successful, the future of the family name. I was just a background, useful only when I could reflect his shine or absorb his failures. But my grandfather saw what no one else wanted to admit. He knew Benedict was not a success. He was a black hole. He knew about the gambling debts Benedict liked to call bad investment luck. He knew that if Benedict inherited the estate, it would be sold off within days to pay bookies in Atlantic City. When the lawyer left, the performance truly began. My mother, Genevieve, stopped crying instantly and fixed her gaze on me with something sharp and frightening. She told me Benedict was in serious trouble. She said dangerous people were involved and that we had to sell the estate immediately to save him. She called it protecting the family name. Sitting there on the velvet sofas, I finally saw the truth of my place in that family. I was never really a daughter. I was a tool. I was the scapegoat, the container for their shame. When Benedict failed, it was because I distracted him. When he crashed his car, it was because I upset him. I existed so he could look strong. I needed to be weak so he could win, invisible so he could shine. But my grandfather had handed me power for the first time in my life, and I refused to give it back. I told them no. I told them I would not sell the estate to cover gambling debts. I told them I would turn the main house into a sanctuary for women recovering from financial and emotional abuse, a place where healing could happen through art. The silence that followed was complete. My father's face turned a dark, angry color. Benedict laughed, a cold, cutting sound filled with hate. He said I was choosing strangers over my own blood. I looked at him and told him that strangers deserved safety, and he deserved consequences. That was the beginning of the war. By refusing to play my role, by refusing to burn myself to keep the golden child warm, I became something unforgivable to them. I became the enemy. As I left the library that day, I knew they would not stop. I just did not yet understand how far they were willing to go, until I found the knife in my studio. 3 days later, I walked into my studio, the converted carriage house that had been my refuge since I was 18. Normally it smelled of linseed oil and cedar, a scent that kept me grounded. That afternoon, the air was sharp and metallic, like wet iron. I saw the overturned easel first. Then I saw the canvas. The portrait of my grandfather, the one I had been restoring for 6 months, had been destroyed, slashed again and again, torn into hanging strips. A jar of cadmium red paint had been thrown across it, splattering the walls and floor in a violent scene that looked horrifyingly real. I stood, frozen, keys digging into my palm. This was not random damage. This was a message. This was a threat. Benedict stepped out of the shadows, dressed in his spotless white lab coat, his face arranged into perfect concern while his eyes remained empty. He said he had tried to warn our parents about my spiral. He described the destruction as a violent episode, textbook mania. I told him to get out. He replied softly that he could not, that he had called for help for my own good. Sirens filled the air. Blue lights flashed against the windows, making the red paint look like blood. Benedict opened the door for the officers, asking them gently to be careful because I was not myself and was off my medication. They took in the ruined studio, the paint, and then they looked at me, shaking and silent. He was a respected surgeon. I was a reclusive artist. The story told itself. One officer stepped toward me. I felt the scream rise inside my chest, burning and desperate. I wanted to tear the truth into the air. Then clarity settled over me like ice. This was the trap. If I screamed, I proved him right. If I fought, I became exactly what he needed me to be. To a stranger, a woman screaming that her doctor brother is framing her sounds exactly like a paranoid delusion. Benedict was counting on my rage. He was banking on me losing control so Heck would take control. So, I did the one thing he didn't expect. I went gray. I became a stone. I locked my jaw, swallowed the scream, and let my face go completely blank. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't point a shaking finger at my brother. When the officer reached for my arm, I turned around and offered my wrists. I saw Benedict's smile falter. He wanted to show. He hinted a scene he could describe in court. Later, I gave him nothing but silence. They put me in the back of their cruiser. I watched through the wire mesh as Benedict stood in the driveway looking disappointed. He picked up his phone, probably to call our parents and tell them the tragic news that their daughter had finally broken. The next 72 hours were a study in endurance. The psychiatric hold is designed to break you, to strip you of your agency. They took my shoelaces. They took my phone. They put me in a room with fluorescent lights that buzzed like angry hornets. Doctors came in to evaluate me, asking questions about voices I didn't hear and shadows I didn't see. I answered them calmly, succinctly. I ate the terrible food. I sat on the cot and meditated. It treated the cell not as a cage, but as a waiting room, because I knew something Benedict didn't. I knew that silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. Every hour I spent in that room without cracking was another crack in his story. Kane got me out. It took her less than 6 hours after the 72-hour hold expired. She walked into the evaluation center armed with my medical records, which held zero history of psychosis, and a threat to sue the hospital for unlawful detent if they held me a mini Tellinger without a court order. The doctors, finding me frighteningly sane, released me. When I walked out into the sunlight, I expected another attack. I expected legal papers, a restraining order, something loud. Instead, I found me parents waiting on my front porch. Genevieve was wearing a simple cotton dress, not her usual silk. Her face was scrubbed clean of makeup, leaving her looking older, softer, more vulnerable. Alistair stood behind her, his head bowed, holding a casserole dish. It was a scene so perfectly curated it felt like a hallucination. Octavia, my mother whispered when she saw me. She rushed forward and fell to her knees right there on the gravel path. "Didn't know," she sobbed, clutching my hand. "We didn't know he went that far. We thought he was just worried about you. When we found out, he called the police when we saw the studio." She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "He lied to us. Octavia, Benedict told us you were off your meds. He told us you were threatening suicide. We were terrified." My father stepped forward. "We're so sorry," he said. His voice was thick. "We've been blind. We let them manipulate us because we wanted to believe he was successful. But we see it now. We see what he is. I looked at him. I looked at the casserole dish. I looked at my mother's tear-stained face. A part of me, the part of me that was 5 years old and just wanted to be held, wanted to believe them. I wanted to believe that the spell had been broken, that my brother's cruelty had gone too far even for them. We want to make it right, Genevieve pleaded. Please come to dinner on Sunday. Just us. We're going to tell Benedict he's out. We're cutting him off. We're removing him from family trust. We want you there to see it. We want to start over. Sunday, I repeated. Yes, a reconciliation dinner. Please, Octavia, give us a chance to be the parents you deserve. I looked at the house, looming behind them. It was a beautiful trap, but traps only work if you don't know they're there. Okay, I said slowly. I'll come. My mother wept with relief. He hugged my legs. My father nodded, looking relieved. They left promising my favorite roast lamb, promising a new beginning. As their car pulled away, I felt a cold chill settle in my bones. They were good. They were very good. The performance was flawless. The remorse felt real. But they had forgotten one thing. I was an artist. I spent my life looking at layers. I knew how to spot a forgery. The tears were real, but the timing was too perfect. Benedict was their investment. He was their retirement plan, their social standing. They wouldn't cut him off because he got a little rough with me. They would only cut him off if he cost them money. And right now, I was the one costing them money. I walked into my studio and picked up a small velvet box from my desk. Inside was a vintage diamond brooch, an heirloom I'd bought at an estate sale years ago, but I hadn't bought it for the diamonds. I had modified it. Behind the center stone was a high-definition lens. Inside the filigree setting was a microphone sensitive, enough to pick up a whisper from across a room. If they wanted a dinner, I would give them a dinner. Booty wasn't going as a guest. I was going as a witness. The main dining room off Vance Estate was a masterpiece of Southern Gothic oppression. Dark wood paneling swallowed the light from the crystal chandelier. The table was set with heavy silver and fine china, a display of wealth that felt more like a fortress than a home. Benedict was there. Of course, he was. Benedict sat in his usual place, calm and unrepentant, while my parents played gracious hosts. The tears and threats to cut him off had vanished the moment he arrived. This was no reconciliation. It was a setup. When my father poured you in, I caught the scent immediately. Sweet nutty almond. Not Bordeaux. Sedative. They weren't trying to fix things. They were trying to erase me. I pretended to drink, coughing and spitting the wine into my napkin, then waited. Minutes later, I slurred my words and let my body go slack. They whispered openly about the dose, the unitary waiting, the plan to force me to sign power of attorney and declare me mentally unfit. Inside, I was fully conscious. The camera on my chest recorded everything. In court the next day, Benedict testified flawlessly, painting me as unstable. My parents supported him with practiced grief. The judge was moments from granting the conservatorship. When my lawyer submitted on final exhibit, the video played. Their voices filled the courtroom. The confession, the poisoning, the plan. Benedict panicked, shouting deep fact until a second video appeared. Him days earlier destroying my grandfather's painting to frame me. That act triggered the clause he forgot about. By damaging the art, he forfeited his entire inheritance. The judge ordered all three arrested. 6 months later, the Estateria penned as an art sanctuary. I kept their rewind portrait exactly as it was, not as damage, but as proof of survival. And for the first time, I walked forward without carrying anyone else's lies.